All right, we should live for Fireside Chat number 103 right now. A few minutes late here, sorry about that. But as far as stuff going on, did work on a couple of things this week. Obviously, we had all the reports come through and everything like that. Overall, things are looking pretty good, I would say. We're still kind of looking at an Arian and Khan putting together another great company because my kind of plan is to actually just remove Host of the High King as an entity and therefore kind of look to only have great companies in use and essentially as actually I've already put up some small changes with that in mind. If you look at announcements, I did announce that the activity requirements have been adjusted slightly. So the idea is mostly just to make it a little bit simpler instead of having to figure out percentages and having to, have more complicated things like there's a base activity requirement and then a requirement for being deemed highly active. And while you normally wouldn't be demoted for not being highly active but meeting the base requirement, you might be if your warband is inactive and they're trying to meet the percentage requirements. So just a lot of stuff that I think looking back now, we can really simplify the way all that sort of stuff is done. So, what it is now is basically there is a one rule for determining if somebody is active or not, and then with that in mind, you basically, if you are inactive 1 month, you sort of get a pass, a strike, and then in the second month, you would then be demoted at that point. And with that in mind, of course, we're not going to be having the 75% requirements and stuff. Instead, basically, what will happen is every member is judged individually instead of being, possibly demoted simply because their warband is struggling, which it does not really seem that fair. So instead, warbands will be held to one requirement, which is 5+ active warrior plus members. So taking a leave of absence still makes you exempt from this kind of thing. That's covered in the rules as well in the handbook. As far as the requirements for taking a leave of absence, I can just go over those in the meantime. So, leave of absence, if you're inactive for a week or more, is when you should take one. And in this term, I use the term absent, meaning more just if you're going to up and disappear for a week. But essentially, the idea here is that if you're not going to meet the activity requirements because of some event or commitment or whatever, so that it does touch on in there that you shouldn't take an LOA because, I'm going to slightly miss the activity requirement, so I'm going to just take an LOA to just like dodge around that or something like that. Can't do that. But the basic activity requirement is listed near the very top of the handbook in section 5, duties and requirements, which I did revise a little bit. So scout still works the same. Basically, when you're a scout, the next Warband review after you've been in the clan a month. So let's say you're recruited on like the 27th. Then in that case, obviously you wouldn't be judged for promotion to warrior that review like a couple of days later. You would be judged for promotion the next month's review. So the soonest review after you've been in the clan 1 full month. You're either demoted to guest or promoted to warrior. Regardless of like the system of you get 1 free month pass. If you're inactive as a scout for 1 month, you're demoted to guest. So scouts are kind of a little bit separate from that new policy. But Warrior Plus, you can see, is at the very bottom of that duties and requirements section. It's pretty, I think, standard as far as the requirement. Basically, must maintain consistent activity each month, demonstrated through meaningful text and voice communication with other members on a weekly basis, or the equivalent, for example, 4 times a month. So basically, what that is about the same as the requirements for a host of the High King Warband member to be highly active. Is now the base requirement for everybody. Now that there are no, well, there are still hosts of the High King Warbands, but the plan is to move away from that. So that's the base requirement that everyone's going to be measured against. If you miss it 1 month, it's not a problem. You get a pass. But 2 months in a row, and you'd be demoted. So certainly these are a little bit easier activity requirements to meet, but the more important thing is I think that they are just easy to understand and track, and basically, yeah, I hope that they'll make it easier both on members who are like, what is this activity requirement? How do I do that? What if I'm not mating it? And also officers and berserkers who are doing the duty to be able to understand how to actually track activity and what they're looking for. So yeah, that's one change there. We did also add a music bot. That was Kusiag and I believe some members of his warband, Silverbrander's Destiny as well, that were requesting a music bot. And yeah, right now it is called Ilmatar, and it is there. It exists. There is a Skaldhaller Discord channel, which is for music, which you can use, and there's also the under WAS naming there is the Skaldhaller text channel, which you can use for bot commands. And you need this Skald in parentheses music role to be able to use the bot, to be a DJ basically. So if you need that, just contact an officer. But yeah, there's also pinned in that text channel, Skaldhaller, a link to the bot commands, so you can just look at that and see how to operate it. I'm sure most of the people who have been using it could also explain it to you too. It's not too fancy. I know it uses YouTube. I think that's what everyone's been doing. I believe it can use Spotify and maybe one other service. I'm not totally sure on that, but yeah, so that's two developments at least. The next thing on the agenda is most likely to, I mean, as soon as we get that new great company for Mjolnirs and Hell's Raiders up and running, then that will be, I'll immediately move into both getting that all set up, but also removing Host of the High King. And Vafthrudnir's most likely will stay as sort of a free-floating warband. I might simply... We'll see exactly the language I use to describe it, but the idea is that Vafthrudnir's will exist purely as kind of a temporary home for new recruits who don't know where to go, or if the recruiters don't know where to put them. So in that case, recruits won't be required to be put into Vafthrudnir's. It'll just be if you don't want your recruit in your own warband for whatever reason, or you don't think they should go in your warband or any other warband, or you're just not sure, then you can put them in Vafthrudnir's, and basically what that will mean is that they'll post in the roll call for Vafthrudnir's, and we'll be keeping track of them, but the idea will be that they will get put into a permanent warband as soon as possible. So most likely I'll still do warband review and reports and everything for Vafthrudnir's with that in mind. So we'll see if I simply slot Vafthrudnir's into one of the current great companies, or if it remains as the only allowed, directly under the High King Warband. We'll see exactly how that goes. If you have any thoughts on that, let me know. But I think it will continue to exist. Certainly no harm in it. I think the only harm is potentially, to some degree, forcing people to join Vafthrudnir's right away as a new recruit when they might already have a good warband that's suited for them, and it's sort of interrupting that connection between the recruiter and the recruit. So that's in place right now, but once I get once that new great company is running, actually, so once a new great company is running, I'll look at the status of Host High King. But Vafthrudnir's is actually a little bit more dependent on the recruitment license idea, where basically there will be some kind of test administered to members who want to be able to recruit, and then if they pass, they will get a recruitment license that works for however long, like 2 years or something. Maybe, we'll see. and they can then recruit as much as they want. But if you don't have that license, you cannot recruit members into the clan. And yeah, so that's the idea. So as soon as that's kind of the next thing on the agenda that I was going to say is that I want to get that all up and running, get that whole recruitment license test class, whatever you want to call it, put together, and then put that in place. As soon as that's in place, the requirement that new recruits get put into Vathruneers will be removed. Officer school, officer testing is another idea I had, probably going a little bit linked with recruitment license, but that'll be a little bit further down the road. That's not as high of a priority for me right now. But yeah, I think that is about it. I did add a couple of roles you can see in announcements here, like PS4 and Xbox One players. So hey, if you need any of those or any other roles, let me know. I did purge some of the inactive ones, but I don't delete the role channels. So if you, for example, let's find a good example here. Oh, the Magic the Gathering channel was not used for quite a while, so I didn't purge the channel. I just hit it, and the role actually still exists. Um, but I did hide the channel because it wasn't getting used. But if you desperately want to start a new group on Magic the Gathering, that is an option. I can always, revive those channels for you. So if you do see a role or something, or if you see a channel disappear, no problem. I do delete some of the roles sometimes, but those are pretty easy to recreate. Usually I only delete roles, the game roles rather, if very few people have them, and there's been no use or mention of them for a very long time. But that said, I think that's about it. So yeah, I'll go ahead and sign off, and we should have Court of the High King here in a couple minutes.